Fiat S.p.A. is the parent company of the Fiat Group and, since July 2011, also the majority shareholder in Chrysler. On January 29, 2014, it was announced that Fiat S.p.A. will be merged into a new Netherlands-based holding company Fiat Chrysler Automobiles NV with the now wholly owned Chrysler Group, and that the merger is expected to take place before the end of 2014. Fiat Chrysler Automobiles will become the owner of Fiat Group. Fiat was founded in 1899 by a group of investors, including Giovanni Agnelli. During its more than century-long history, Fiat has also manufactured railway engines and carriages, military vehicles, farm tractors, and aircraft. In 2013, Fiat was the second-largest European automaker by volumes produced, and the seventh in the world ahead of Honda, PSA Peugeot Citroën, Suzuki, Renault and Daimler AG. Over the years, Fiat has acquired numerous other automakers. It acquired Lancia in 1968, became a shareholder of Ferrari in 1969, took control of Alfa Romeo from the Italian government in 1986, purchased Maserati in 1993, and became the full owner of Chrysler Group LLC in 2014. Fiat Group currently produces vehicles under 12 brands: Abarth, Alfa Romeo, Chrysler, Dodge, Ferrari, Fiat, Fiat Professional, Jeep, Lancia, Maserati, Ram trucks, and SRT. In 1970, Fiat employed more than 100,000 in Italy when its production reached the highest number, 1.4 million cars, in that country. As of 2002, Fiat built more than 1 million vehicles at 6 plants in Italy, and the country accounted for more than a third of the Campania Euro unregistered trademark S revenue. Fiat brand cars are built in several locations around the world. Outside Italy, the largest country of production is Brazil, where the Fiat brand is the market leader. The group also has factories in Argentina, Poland and Mexico, and a long history of licensing manufacture of its products in other countries. It also has numerous alliances and joint ventures around the world, the main ones being located in Serbia, France, Turkey, India and China. Giovanni Agnelli, the grandson of founder Giovanni Agnelli, was Fiat's chairman from 1966 until 1996. He then served as honorary chairman from 1996 until his death on January 24, 2003, during which time Ser Romiti served as chairman. He was succeeded briefly by Paolo Fresco, who served as chairman, and Paolo Cantarella, as CEO. Umberto Agnelli then took over as chairman from 2003 to 2004. After Umberto Agnelli's death on May 28, 2004, Luca Cordero di Montezemolo was named chairman, with Agnelli John Ancon becoming vice chairman, and other family members also serving on the board. On June 1, 2004, Giuseppe Morchio was replaced by Sergio Marchionne as CEO. History. Giovanni Agnelli, with several investors, founded the Fabbrica Italiana Automobili Torino Società per Azioni, Italian automobile factory of Turin, in 1899. Its acronymous name was changed to upper and lower case Fiat in 1906. Agnelli led the company until his death in 1945, while Vittorio Valletta administered the firm's daily activities. Its first car, the 301 CV, strongly resembled contemporary Benz, and had a 697cc boxer twin engine. In 1903, Fiat produced its first truck. In 1908, the first Fiat was exported to the US. That same year, the first Fiat aircraft engine was produced. Also around the same time, Fiat taxis became popular in Europe. By 1910, Fiat was the largest automotive company in Italia, a position it has retained since. That same year, a new plant was built in Poughkeepsie, New York, by the newly founded American Fiat Automobile Company. Owning a Fiat at the time was a sign of distinction. The cost of a Fiat in the US was initially $4,000 and rose up to $6,400 in 1918, compared to $825 for a Ford Model T in 1908, and $525 in 1918, respectively. During World War I, Fiat had to devote all of its factories to supplying the Allies with aircraft, engines, machine guns, trucks, and ambulances. Upon the entry of the U.S. into the war in 1917, the factory was shut down as U.S. regulations became too burdensome. After the war, Fiat introduced its first tractor, the 702. By the early 1920s, Fiat had a market share in Italy of 80%. In 1921, workers seized Fiat's plants and hoisted the red flag of communism over them. Agnelli responded by quitting the company. However, the Italian Socialist Party and its ally organization, the Italian General Confederation of Labour, in an effort to effect a compromise with the centrist parties, ordered the occupation ended. In 1922, Fiat began to build the famous Lingotto car Factoria Euro, then the largest in Europe Euro, which opened in 1923. It was the first Fiat factory to use assembly lines. By 1925, Fiat controlled 87% of the Italian car market. In 1928, with the 509, Fiat included insurance in the purchase price. Fiat made military machinery and vehicles during World War II for the Army and Regia Aeronautica and later for the Germans. Fiat made obsolete fighter aircraft like the biplane CR-42, which was one of the most common Italian aircraft, along with Savoia Marchettis, as well as light tanks and armored vehicles. The best Fiat aircraft was the G-55 fighter, which arrived too late and in too limited numbers. In 1945 the year Mussolini was overthrown the National Liberation Committee removed the Agnelli family from leadership roles in Fiat because of its ties to Mussolini's government. These were not returned until 1963, when Giovanni's grandson, Gianni, took over as general manager until 1966, as chairman until 1996. Giovanni Agnelli. Among the younger Agnelli's first steps after gaining control of Fiat was a massive reorganization of the company management, which had previously been highly centralized, with little provision for the delegation of authority and decision-making. Such a system was effective in the past, but lacked the responsiveness and flexibility needed by Fiat's steady expansion, and the growth of its international operations in the 1960s. The company was reorganized on a product line basis, with two main product groups, one for passenger cars, the other for trucks and tractors and a number of semi-independent division and subsidiaries. Top management, freed from responsibility for day-by-day operations of the company, was able to devote its efforts to more far-reaching goals. In 1967, Fiat made its first acquisition when it purchased Autobianchi. With sales amounting to $1.7 billion, it outstripped Volkswagen, its main European competitor, and in 1968 produced some 1,750,000 vehicles while its sales volume climbed to $2.1 billion. According to Newsweek in 1968, Fiat was the most dynamic automaker in Europe, and may come closest to challenging the worldwide supremacy of Detroit. Then, in 1969, it purchased controlling interests in Ferrari and Lancia. At the time, Fiat was a conglomerate, owning Alitalia, toll highways, a typewriter and office machine manufacturer, electronics and electrical equipment firms, a paint company, a civil engineering firm, and an international construction company. Following up on an agreement Valletta had made with Soviet officials in 1966, Agnelli constructed the Avtovaz plant in the new city of Togliattigrad on the Volga. This began operation in 1970, producing a local version of the Fiat 124 as the Lada. On his initiative, Fiat automobile and truck plants were also constructed in industrial centers of Yugoslavia, Poland, Bulgaria, and Romania. Despite offering a relatively competitive range of cars, Fiat was not immune from the financial pressures that the auto industry confronted following the 1973 oil price shock. Towards the end of 1976 it was announced that the Libyan government was to take a 9.6% shareholding in the company in return for a capital injection worth an equivalent of £250 a million. The size of the Libyan investment is apparent when it is compared to the £310 a million IMF loan that the Italian government was trying to negotiate at the time. Other aspects of the Libyan agreement included the construction of a truck and bus plant at Tripoli. Chairman Agnelli candidly described the deal as a classic petro money recycling operation which will strengthen the Italian reserves, provide Fiat with fresh capital and give the group greater tranquility in which to carry out its investment programs. Equally noteworthy was the fact that despite the dilutive effect of the Libyan investment on existing shareholders, the company's largest shareholder, the Agnelli family, retained a 30% stake in the recapitalized business. In 1979, the company became a holding company when it spun off its various businesses into autonomous companies, one of them being Fiat Auto. That same year, sales reached an all-time high in the U.S., corresponding to the Iranian oil crisis. However, when gas prices fell again after 1981, Americans began purchasing sport utility vehicles, minivans, and pickup trucks in larger numbers. Also, Japanese automakers had been taking an ever larger share of the car market, increasing at more than 0.5% a year. Consequently, in 1984, Fiat and Lancia withdrew from the United States market. In 1989, it did the same in the Australian market, although it remained in New Zealand. In 1986, Fiat acquired Alfa Romeo from the Italian government. Also, in 1986 15% of Fiat company stock was still owned by Libya, an investment dating back to the mid-70s. U.S. foreign policy under President Reagan's administration cancelled a Pentagon contract to produce earth movers with Fiat and pressured the company into brokering a buyout of the Libyan investment. In 1992, two top corporate officials in the Fiat Group were arrested for political corruption. A year later, Fiat acquired Maserati. In 1995 Alfa Romeo exited the U.S. market. Maserati re-entered the U.S. market under Fiat in 2002. Since then, Maserati sales there have been increasing briskly. Paolo Fresco became chairman of Fiat in 1998 with the hope that the veteran of General Electric would bring more emphasis on shareholder value to Fiat. By the time he took power, Fiat's market share in Italy had fallen to 41% from around 62% in 1984. However, a Jack Welch-like management style would be much harsher than that used by the Italians. Instead, Fresco focused on offering more incentives for good performance, including compensation using stock options for top and middle management. However, his efforts were frustrated by union objections. Unions insisted that pay raises be set by length of tenure, rather than performance. Another conflict was over his preference for informality. He often referred to other managers by their first name, although company tradition obliged one to refer to others using their titles. The CEO of the company, Paolo Cantarella, ran the day-to-day affairs of the company, while Fresco determined company strategy and especially acted as a negotiator for the company. In 1999, Fiat formed CNH Global by merging New Holland Nevada and Case Corporation. In 2003, Fiat shed its insurance sector, which it was operating through Toro Assicurazioni to the D'Agostini Group. In the same year, Fiat sold its aviation business, Fiat Avio to Avio Holding. In February 2004, the company sold its interest in Fiat Engineering, as well as its stake in Edison. Sergio Marchionne was appointed CEO of Fiat in 2004 and initially he impressed investors. At the end of the 2005 financial year, the company saw its first profit in 17 quarters of a 196M for the first 9 months of FY 2006. Marchionne reduced Fiat's managerial bureaucracy, refocused the business on markets and profit. While chairman, Luca di Montezemolo, dealt with politicians and unions, Marchionne rebuilt the car business. The success of the Gran Punto model was in large part responsible for the turnaround in Fiat's fortunes, but the award-winning 500 cemented it. Fiat formed a joint venture with India's Tata Motors, which has subsequently ended, and with China's Chery Motors, which didn't conclude. In 2005 Fiat courted Ford, and returned to China with a joint venture GAC Fiat created in 2010. Under Marchionne, Fiat also re-entered several large markets that it had exited years before, such as Mexico and Australia. In December 2008, Martian announced Fiat had to become one of the top 5 automakers to survive in the long run. Under Marconi's leadership, Fiat returned to Canadian and American markets with a new 500. However, since 2009, Martian has presided over a business that has experienced a loss in European market share from 9.3 to 6.2%. In December 2013, Martian announced that he intended to discontinue the Gran Punto so that the company could focus on cool, high-margin Fiat 500 variants and the Fiat Panda. In 2010, John Elkann became the chairman of Fiat S.p.A. and shareholders approved a plan to demerge Fiat's capital goods businesses. Agricultural and construction equipment manufacturer CNH Global NV, truck maker Iveco, and the industrial and marine division of Fiat Powertrain Technologies were spun off into a new group on January 1, 2011. The parent company, Fiat Industrial S.p.A., was listed on the Milan Stock Exchange on January 3, 2011. In 2010, credit rating agency Fitch cut Fiat's debt rating to BB after it had accumulated a debt of around $9.3 billion. In 2013, Fiat's debt rating was cut again, this time by Moody's, to Bar3 over concerns European demand was lower and debt was falling slower than expected. The Financial Times estimate of Fiat's debt at the time was almost to $28 billion. Acquisition of Chrysler. On January 20, 2009, Fiat S.p.A. and Chrysler LLC announced their intention to form a global alliance. Under the terms of the agreement, Fiat would take a 20% stake in Chrysler and gain access to its North American distribution network in exchange for providing Chrysler with technology and platforms to build smaller, more fuel-efficient vehicles in the U.S. and providing reciprocal access to Fiat's global distribution network. Agreements were signed on April 30, 2009, with Fiat's future shareholding capped at 49% until all government loans had been repaid. In addition, the proposed agreement would entitle Fiat to receive a further 15% through the achievement of specific product and commercial objectives. No cash or financial support was required from Fiat under the agreement. Instead it would obtain its stake mainly in exchange for covering the cost of retooling a Chrysler plant to produce one or more Fiat models for in the U.S. Fiat would also provide engine and transmission technology to enable Chrysler to introduce smaller, fuel-efficient models in the NAFTA market. The deal was engineered by Fiat chief Sergio Marchionne, who pulled the Italian group back from the brink of collapse after taking over in 2004. The principal objective of the partnership was to provide both groups with significantly enhanced economies of scale and geographical reach at a time when they were struggling to compete with larger and more global rivals such as Toyota, Volkswagen and alliance partners Renault SA and Nissan. Fiat would not have to pay any money for its 20% of Chrysler. On June 7, 2009, the Indiana State Police Pension Fund, the Indiana Teachers Retirement Fund, and the state's Major Moves Construction Fund asked the U.S. Supreme Court to delay the sale of Chrysler to Fiat while they challenged the deal. The funds argued that the sale went against U.S. bankruptcy law because it unlawfully rewarded unsecured creditors ahead of secured creditors. On June 9, 2009, the Supreme Court lifted the temporary hold, clearing the way for Fiat to acquire Chrysler. See Indiana State Police Pension Trust v. Chrysler for more information. On June 10, the Supreme Court announced that Fiat was now an owner of the new Chrysler aka Chrysler Group LLC. Marchionne was appointed CEO of Chrysler following its emergence from bankruptcy proceedings. Under his leadership, Chrysler has taken on a structure similar to that of Fiat and has released, in quick succession, a large number of completely redesigned or refreshed vehicles. Fiat launched its 500, which had been available in Europe since 2007, in the United States and Canada in 2011, marking the company's return to the American auto market, which it had been absent from since 1984. Prior to this, Fiat's main presence on the continent was Mexico, where it offers a greater variety of products than in the United States and Canada. On January 10, 2011, Fiat announced that it had increased its share in Chrysler from 20% to 25% following the achievement of the first of 3 performance objectives. On April 11, 2011, it announced achievement of the second performance objective, increasing its stake a further 5% to 30%. On May 24, 2011, Fiat announced that it had paid Chrysler $1,268 a million for a further 16% interest, increasing its total stake to 46%. The transaction coincided with Chrysler refinancing its debt to the US and Canadian governments. On May 25, Autonews.com reported that Fiat could buy government stakes in Chrysler as soon as the end of July 2011, increasing its total stake to 54%. In May 2011, it emerged that Fiat could actually increase its stake in Chrysler Group to more than 70% through the exercise of further options. In a regulatory filing dated July 22, 2011, the Michigan-based automaker reported that Fiat held a 53.5% interest. Fiat and Chrysler have both stated that they expect that interest to reach 58.5% by the end of 2011 as a result of achievement of a third of the three performance objectives. In January 5, 2012, Fiat released press info that the ownership has increased to 58.5%. The stake was further increased to 68.49% in July 2013. On January 1, 2014, Fiat announced it would be acquiring the remaining shares of Chrysler owned by the VEBA worth $3.65 billion. The deal was completed by January 21. On January 29, 2014, it was announced that Fiat S.p.A. and Chrysler Group LLC would be merged into a new holding, Fiat Chrysler Automobiles NV, incorporated in the Netherlands with tax domicile in the UK. Activities. The group's activities were initially focused on the industrial production of cars, industrial and agricultural vehicles. Over time it has diversified into many other fields, and the group now has activities in a wide range of sectors in industry and financial services. It is Italy's largest industrial concern. It also has significant worldwide operations, operating in 61 countries with 1,063 companies that employ over 223,000 people, 111,000 of whom are outside Italy. Fiat's main shareholders include 30.1% by Chrysler S.p.A., 24.9% by EU institutional investors, 11.2% by outside EU institutional investors and 2.6% by Baillie Gifford & Company, a Scottish investment management company. Principal subsidiaries. Fiat's principal operating subsidiaries include Fiat Group Automobiles S.p.A., Chrysler Group LLC, Fiat Automobili S.A. FCA Capital S.p.A., Ferrari S.p.A., Maserati S.p.A., Magneti Marelli S.p.A., Texid S.p.A., Comau S.p.A., Fabbrica Italiana Automobili S.p.A., alliances and joint ventures. Fiat has undertaken numerous joint ventures and alliances. Commencing in 1978, the Type 4 platform was an alliance between Alfa Romeo, Fiat, Lancia and Saab and resulting in a range of cars on sale in the mid-1980s. In 2000 a number of joint ventures were established with General Motors following GM buying 20% of Fiat while Fiat bought 6% of GM. Complications with the relationship saw these JVs being wound back by 2005. Resulting projects included the GM Fiat Small Platform and Fiat GM Powertrain. In 2005, Fiat formed an alliance with Ford to create a new small car, resulting in the Fiat 500 and Ford car. In 2012, Fiat formed an alliance with Mazda to develop and build a new rear-wheel drive roadster for the Alfa Romeo and Mazda brands. Automotive. For Fiat-branded cars see Fiat Automobiles. Fiat is the largest vehicle manufacturer in Italy, with cars ranging from small Fiat city cars to sports cars made by Ferrari, and vans and trucks such as the Ducato. Besides Fiat Group Automobiles S.p.A., Fiat Group automotive companies include Chrysler Group LLC and Maserati S.p.A. The Fiat Group Automobiles S.p.A. companies include Abarth and C.S.p.A., Alfa Romeo Automobiles S.p.A., Fiat Automobiles S.p.A., Fiat Professional and Lancia Automobiles S.p.A., Ferrari S.p.A. is 90% owned by the Fiat Group. The company also owns Autobianchi but the marque has been dormant since 1995, and Innocenti, which ceased production in 1996. The European Car of the Year award, Europe's premier automotive trophy for the past 50 years, has been awarded 12 times to the Fiat Group, more than any other manufacturer, most recently with the Fiat 500 in 2008. Previous Fiat Group models which have won European Car of the Year: Fiat 124, Fiat 128, Fiat 127, Lancia Delta, Fiat Uno, Fiat Tipo, Fiat Punto, Fiat Bravo Brava, Alfa Romeo 156, Alfa Romeo 147 and the Fiat Panda. Trucks and buses: for Fiat-branded trucks and buses from 1903 to 1975, see Fiat Industrial Vehicles, Iveco. Fiat's former truck, bus and specialty vehicles business unit, was demerged into Fiat Industrial at the beginning of 2011. Commercial vehicles: on April 17, 2007, Fiat Automobiles Light Commercial Vehicle Unit Fiat Veicoli Commerciali was rebranded as Fiat Professional. Some of Fiat's light commercial vehicle products include the Fiat Ducato, Fiat Scudo and Fiat Doble Squared Cargo. Agricultural and construction equipment: for Fiat-branded agricultural and construction equipments from 1917 to 1991, see Fiat Trattori, and from 1992 to 2014, see CNH Global. Components: the major Italian component maker Magneti Marelli is owned by Fiat, and it in turn owns other brands such as AL Automotive Lighting, Kalo, Chromodra, Kofop, Ergom Automotive, Jaeger, Marco Electric, Paraflu, Sima, Siemspar, Solex, Veglia Belletti, Vitalini and Weber. Metallurgical products: Fiat owns Texid S.p.A., the largest iron foundry group in the world with a production capacity of approximately 600,000 tons annually. The company was established in December 1978, and designs and produces cylinder blocks, cylinder heads, exhaust manifolds, drive shafts, camshafts and other components for automobiles and commercial vehicles. Texid, which is specialized in casting and processing iron, has plants in France, Portugal, Poland, Brazil, Mexico and China. Since 2007, Texid S.p.A. runs also Texid Aluminum S.r.l., a company specialized in casting and producing auto components from aluminum alloys. Production systems: production systems are made mainly through Como S.p.A., which bought the American Pico, Renault Automation and Suzuki and produces industrial automation systems. In the 1970s and 1980s, the company became a pioneer in the use of industrial robotics for the assembly of motor vehicles. Fiat assembly plants are among the best automated and advanced in the world. Services: an insurance company, Toro Assicurazioni, allowed Fiat to control a relevant part of this market and to interact with some associated banks. Toro Assicurazioni was acquired by the giant insurance company Assicurazioni Generali and is no longer part of the Fiat Group. Construction: Ingest facility and Fiat Engineering work in various fields of construction, while IPI is a mediation company that also deals with the management of real estate properties. Information technology: Fiat Group is present in IT fields and in communications with ICTA Euro Information and Communication Technology, Global Value, Teal Client, London and Atlanit. Publishing and communication: Fiat Group also has interests in several major publishing houses and national and local newspapers, such as La Stampa, Itadi, and Italiana Edizioni. A specialized advertising space reseller is Publicompass, supported by the Consorzio Fiat Media Center. Fiat also has one of the largest shareholdings in RCS Media Group. Other activities: Fiat Gesco, KG Consulting, Sardi Customs Services, Easy Drive, RM Risk Management and Servizio Titolai are minor companies that work for public services, delivering services in economics and financial fields. Other activities include industrial securitization, treasury, Fiat Information and Communication Services. Fiat supports the Fondazione Giovanni Agnelli, an important foundation for social and economic research. Palazzo Grassi, a well-known historic building in Venice, now a museum and formerly supported by Fiat, was eventually sold to the French businessman Renault Section Renault in January 2005. Aviation and motorcycles. Fiat, as Fiat Aviation, was an important aircraft manufacturer, focused mainly on military aviation. After World War I, Fiat consolidated several Italian small aircraft manufacturers, like Pomiglio and Ansaldo. Most famous were Fiat biplane fighter aircraft of the 1930s, Fiat Creek 32 and Fiat Creek 42. Other notable designs were fighters CR-20, G-50, G-55 and a bomber, the Fiat Branch 20. In 1950s, the company designed the G-91 light ground attack plane. In 1969, Fiat Aviation merged with AERFA to create Air Italia. In 1959, Peugeot came under the control of the Agnelli family. In 1964, the aeronautical and motorcycle divisions split to become independent companies. The aeronautical division was named IAM Rinaldo Peugeot. Today the aeronautical company Peugeot Aero is controlled by the family of Piero Ferrari, which also holds 10% of the car marca Ferrari. The motorcycle division, Vespa, thrived until 1992, when Giovanni Alberto Agnelli became CEO Euro, but Agnelli was already suffering from cancer, and died in 1997. In 1999, Morgan Grenfell Private Equity acquired Peugeot. Weapons. Fiat built artillery tractors for the French and Italian armies in World War I. Società Anonima Fabbrica Armi Torino was a wholly owned subsidiary of Fiat in the 1930s, designing and manufacturing weapons for the Italian armed forces. After losing a competition to produce a series of new machine guns for the Regia Aeronautica, SAFAT was sold to the winning competitor, Società Italiana Ernesto Breda, forming Breda SAFAT. Rail transport. Fiat Ferroviaria. There has been a long history going back pre-WW2 of Fiat motive power used for both diesel and electric locomotives and railcars not only in Italy, but other parts of Europe, and in South America, but from the 1970s onward, more widely known throughout the world with their successful commercial development of the Pendolino tilting trains, the first working prototype for car set being run in the mid-1970s. Fiat Ferroviaria was later sold to Alstom in the middle 1990s. Recreation. The Fiat Group owned the Sestraia skiing facilities. The village in the Alps is a creation of the Agnelli family. The Sestraia skiing facilities were sold by the group in 2006. Enterprises outside Italy. See List of Fiat Group assembly sites. Fiat was a key player in developing motor industries for a number of countries from the 1950s, particularly in Eastern Europe, Spain, Egypt, Ethiopia and Turkey. The Autovaz State Works Lada products in Toliatti, Russia, were Fiat-based, as was Seat products of Spain. Lada is now controlled by Renault, and Seat by Volkswagen. A small number of Fiats were built in Bulgaria. Among Fiat's earliest foreign assembly plants was one in Poughkeepsie, New York, between 1910 and 1913. The building is now part of the Marist College campus. Fiat Automobiili. Fiat Automobiili S.A., a subsidiary of Fiat S.p.A., began making automobiles in Brazil in 1976 beginning with the production of the Fiat 147, the Brazilian version of the Italian Fiat 127, produced until 1986. More than 10 million units have been produced in Fiat Automobiili factory in Betim since 1976, plus 232,807 units in the Fiat Argentina plant of Car Cubed RDOBA. The original factory, located in the city of Belo Horizonte, cost $250 million to build. The state of Minas Gerais had a 10 to 20% stake in the company and also provided special economic benefits to Fiat. Launched in July 1979, the 147 was the first mass-produced car that ran on ethanol as fuel instead of petrol. The performance slightly increased and fuel consumption was 30% higher, but the cost of the alcohol was a quarter of the gasoline because, at that time, petrol had become expensive as a consequence of the 1979 oil crisis. This version was nicknamed Calcina because it had the scent of that Brazilian drink. In October 1984, Fiat Automoker reintroduced the Fiat Uno, which continued on sale until the end of 2013 as the renamed Fiat Mille, resulting in total production of 3.6 million vehicles. Production of the Fiat Palio World Car began in 1996. After the successful 2003 introduction of flexible fuel vehicles in the Brazilian market, Fiat Automoker launched its first flex model in March 2004, the Fiat Palio, followed by the Siena and Palio Weekend. Fiat sold 665,514 vehicles in Brazil in 2008, allowing the carmaker to continue as the market leader for 7 years in a row. Flex-fuel automobiles represented almost 100% of the car sales in 2008, and 92% of all light-duty trucks sold. In 2006, Fiat introduced the Fiat Siena Tetra Fuel, a four-fuel car developed under Magneti Marelli of Fiat Brazil. This automobile can run as a flex fuel on 100% ethanol, or on E20-E25 blend, Brazil's normal ethanol gasoline blend, on pure gasoline, or just on natural gas. The Siena Tetra Fuel was engineered to switch from any gasoline-ethanol blend to CNG automatically, depending on the power required by road conditions. Fiat Argentina. Fiat has been present in Argentina since the beginning of the 20th century. There was a Fiat manufacturing plant in Ciudad de Oba at least as far back as 1954 when Fiat entered into a joint venture with two local companies to manufacture tractors. The company was known as Fiat Concord until 1980. In 1959 the construction of a car plant in Caseros was approved, and 1960 saw the production there of the first Argentinian-produced Fiat passenger car, a Fiat 600, after the Fiat 1100 Export and after in 1963 the Fiat 1500. In 1977 appears the Fiat 133, just a rebadged seat 133 but made in Argentina. By 1978 a car manufacturing facility was well established in Ciudad de Oba, producing Fiat 128s as well as two models which from the Italian perspective belonged in earlier decades, the 125 and the 600R. In 1980 a joint venture with PSA called Sevel Argentina S.A. was begun, which lasted until 1995. The current-day automobile manufacturing started with a new factory opened in Ciudad de Oba on December 20, 1996. From April 1997 the Siena and Palio models production started. Production was suspended in the early 2000s as the Argentinian economy went downhill. In 2008 Fiat invested new money in the production of Fiat Siena Saloon and the Fiat Palio was started. In October 2009, a Fiat Siena HLX becomes the 2 million unit produced by Fiat in Argentina. The Fiat Auto Argentina S.A. is Fiat S.p.A. owned company. Fiat Automobili Srbija, its first enterprise came in 1955, when it agreed to a deal with Yugoslav carmaker Zastava to assemble Fiats for Eastern Europe. The first cars produced by Zastava were its versions of the Fiat 1300 and Fiat 1400. By 1970, Zastava was producing parts for the newer Fiat 124 and Fiat 125 models, which were assembled in Poland. The Zastava 750, launched in 1962, was Zastava's version of the iconic Fiat 600 minicar. It outlived the car on which it was based, with production lasting until 1981. Zastavas were not popular outside of Eastern Europe before the 1980s, although they were exported to the US and several European countries under the Yugo brand during the 1980s. The most famous product launched by Zastava is the Zastava 101, a front-wheel drive car based on the Fiat 128, also available as a hatchback version never sold in Italy. With the demise of the Zastava 750 in 1981, the minicar gap in the Zastava range was filled by the Zastava Coral, which was best known in Britain and America as the Yugo Tempo or Yugo 45/55. It was based on the 1971 Fiat 127, which was due to be replaced by the Fiat Uno in 1983. Hostility towards Yugoslavia in the wake of the 1992 civil unrest saw a swift ending of imports to both Britain and America. The Zastava factory in Kragujevac was later bombed, but was rebuilt after the war ended, and production continued at another factory in Kragujevac. In 1987, Zastava came up with a new car design. The Zastava Florida Euro, known in other markets as the Yugo Sanara Euro, was styled by Giorgetto Giugiaro at the Ital Design Studio, featured a range of refined Peugeot engines. Sales continued in its homeland, with an update at the end of the 1990s. Zastava did not launch another new car for another 16 years. The 2003 Zastava 10 model was another Fiat designer Euro, this time the second-generation Punto, and in 2009 was renamed Fiat Punto Classic. A new memorandum of understanding between Fiat and the Serb Ministry of Economic and Regional Development about the acquisition of Zastava's Kragujevac plant in 2008 led to a new company being set up in which the Italians would have a 70% stake and the Serb government 30%. The factory was renamed from Zastava Automobili S.p.A to Fiat Automobili S.p.A. In 2010 and 2011, FAS underwent large-scale reconstruction for production of the Fiat 500L in 2012. Polski Fiat FSO. Fiat automobiles have been made in Poland since 1920. In 1932, the Polski Zakładnia 1/4 in Jurich started the production of Fiat 508, produced until 1939 also as a military vehicle. In 1936 the license was extended to include the Fiat 518 model. In 1965, the Polish Communist government signed a deal with Fiat to produce selected Fiat models in Poland at the FSO factory in Warsaw that had been built in 1951. Production of the new car Euro, the Polski Fiat 125 PA Euro, began in 1967. It was visually identical to the Fiat 125, but it made use of older Fiat mechanicals which dated back to 1960. The car sold well in its homeland and was soon exported to Western Europe. 1978 saw the appearance of a new 5-door hatchback, the FSO Polones, that made use of Fiat 125P running gear. After 1982, Fiat withdrew its license. Since then FSO badge was reinstated with a Polski Fiat 125P surviving until 1991, and the Polones production ending in 2002. FSO was taken over by Daewoo of South Korea in 1995, and become independent again in late 2000, after Daewoo went bankrupt and was taken over by General Motors. Fabbrica Samocheda Cube W Mayorolita 1/4 Hour in Bielsko-Biała and Tychy was a joint venture between FSO and Fiat, and manufactured the Fiat 126P in 1973 and the Cinquecento in 1991. In 1992 Fiat owned 90% of FSM, and since then it produced Cinquecento, Uno, Seicento, Siena and Palio weekend models with a capacity up to 200,000 cars a year. In 2003, FSM became the sole producer of Fiat Panda, and in 2007, the Fiat 500 and its related Ford car capacity was increased with production reaching over 600,000 in 2009, but dropped below 300,000 in 2013, resulting in the workforce being cut by a third. Autovoz Lada. In 1966, Fiat helped USSR State Industries build a new car factory on the Volga River. A planned city called Almaty was developed around the factory, which started producing a people's car similar to the Volkswagen Beetle and Citroën N2CV of Germany and France. The new Soviet car, called the Lada, was a more spacious offering, in 4-door saloon and 5-door estate variants. Fiat installed British machine tools supplied by Herbert PSA of Birmingham for the manufacture of many Lada parts. The 124's design was mechanically upgraded to survive treacherous Russian driving conditions and extremely cold winters. Imports to Western Europe, Canada, and some Third World countries sold well owing to their low price. This car was upgraded to become the Lada Riva in 1980. Lada has gone on to develop some of its own models. The four-wheel drive Lada Niva uses some Fiat-based components, for example engine and gearbox, but the body and four-wheel drive system are VAZ designs. Bulgaria. 1967 Euro 1971 produced print Fiat in Lovech, Bulgaria. TOFA is joint venture owned by Fiat S.p.A and Co-Section Holding. The Fiat 124 was produced under license by TOFA as the TOFA Murat. This was replaced by a version of the Fiat 131, known as the TOFA Angstrom TOFA Murat 131. Today the Fiat Linea car is amongst those manufactured by the Fiat Tofaş joint venture in Turkey, and the company has 12.1% of the Turkish car market as of 2007. Seat, in Spain, Seat Euro Sociedad S.p.A plus or minus Ola de Automaque Vials de Turismo Euro was established with Fiat assistance in 1950, producing Fiat models under its own brand name until 1981, when Fiat withdrew its support. In 1982 Seat signed a cooperation agreement with the German manufacturer Volkswagen, and by the end of 1986 after a purchase of a majority stake Seat had become part of the Volkswagen Group. However, production of some Fiat-based models continued, ending with the Fiat-based Marbella in 1998. Ethiopia, the Fiat 131, known as the Holland car DOCC. Egypt, following the Egyptian Revolution of 1952, President Gamal Abdel Nasser ordered the EGID to establish a state-owned automobile company. NAS was founded in 1960 in Helwan, Egypt. It began producing some Fiat-based models, but later produced the TOFA Angstrom under license by TOFA. The last Fiat 128 model was built in 2008, while the Angstrom is in production in Egypt. Currently the El Mashreq Company, a part of the Salaudi Group, is the main manufacturer of Alfa Romeo and Fiat vehicles for the Egypt market. The AAV was also an Egypt manufacturer for Fiat. They assembled the Fiat Ritmo in order of NAS. India, Fiat India Automobiles Private Limited is a joint venture between Fiat and Mumbai-based Tata Motors, founded in 1997. Fiat builds the Palio-style, Linea in Punto. The Fiat plant is situated in Ranjangan near Pune in Maharashtra and also manufactures the Tata Indica. Although not a subsidiary of Fiat, Premier Automobiles of Mumbai was licensed to manufacture versions of the Fiat 500 for the Indian market. This was followed by the Fiat 1100 in 1954. In 1973, the Fiat label was replaced with a Premier name. Pakistan, Raja Motors are the authorized manufacturers of Fiat motor vehicles in Pakistan since 1948. The manufacturing started with Vespa scooters in 1948. The project was expanded in 2001 to facilitate assembly-cum-manufacturing of the Fiat Uno. The production facility is located in Landi Industrial Area, Karachi, Pakistan. Sri Lanka, in 1973. Entrepreneur Uppali Wijewardena's Uppali Motor Company began assembly of the local variant of Fiat 128, known as UMC Fiat 128. Production ended with the introduction of the open market economy in 1978. North Korea, the North Korean car manufacturer and dealer Pyeonghwa Motors assembles two Fiat models under license since 2002, Iparama, Whistle, a Euro based on the Fiat Siena, Fiat Goodyear, OWL, a Euro based on the Fiat Dobless Squared. China, Fiat entered into a 50-50 joint venture with GAC Group in 2010 to create GAC Fiat Automobiles Company, with a factory in Changsha completed in 2012 producing a localized version of the Dodge Dart sold as the Fiat VGO. See also: Automotive industry crisis of 2008 Euro 2009, list of aircraft engines, list of Italian companies, NECA, Simca, references. External links, official website.